So I'm down to my last 3 burls, so let me take one of the most awkward ones and show you how I'll process it. We'll see what we'll get. Just like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Notice when I'm chainsawing, I always keep my left hand as stiff as possible, so if I ever did get a kickback, it's going to jump up and not back. It always pays to be able to, when you're harvesting these, to leave a little extra length as shown here, and that's what I'm doing, is trimming that extra length off each end. So I start to evaluate each end to see where I might have cracks, where I might have voids, where I might have piths coming through with multiple branches, and I get a piece of chalk, which I find helpful, and I maneuver this around on a sawbuck so I get a nice stable hold. So now I'm just examining the ends, trying to figure out where, got a bunch of critters here, where's the best place to cut. Still not heavy into the burl here. There's a small pith here, a small pith here, and a small pith there. A little bit of probably rot there or something. The other side, I only see one pith on that side, that's right there. Well, and of course this branch. So, I think I want to come right down through the middle. There. And on this side, that's going to be right about there. Now that I've got it cut in half, I've got a better feel for what the burl looks like, and frankly, I'm a little disappointed. I see the burl through here, not much through here. This is kind of rotted or spalted, the grain's running this way. There's a fair amount of bark here, so this is not going to be real usable on this side. I could get a good bowl blank out of here. And I'm trying to decide, some of this may be salvageable for some type of spindle application. This one, I've got some burl through here. Again, a lot of bark on the back side, so we won't, I'll lose some of this. Got some nice burl here. This actually looks like the better of the two blanks, although I've got this bark inclusion in here, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to do anything with that. So I think the bowl blank's going to be limited to that right there. That being the case, I need to decide what, if anything, ought to be go ahead and saw it off the chainsaw. I think probably I will go inside and continue with a bandsaw at this point in time. These burls have been sitting too long, so I'm going to go ahead and process this one as well. This one has got a bad crack right here, and it goes down at least down to there. But it's fairly thick here. It's thicker there than it is on the other side. It's got some minor cracks, so I think I can get a nice bowl out of that. I need to get rid of this. I'll go ahead and chainsaw that off of it before I take it to the bandsaw. So I maneuvered this around to see how I can actually visibly get to this crack and not do too much. And it's heavy enough and flat enough that I believe it'll be steady right there, and actually like go right in that old crack. So okay, I got the back side of it flat. Probably not as flat as I could. I've got a little bit of trench down the middle, but I think this will be close enough for me to take it to the bandsaw and work on it from there. And I think I'm going to take the flat off of those first two pieces. Cut a flat off the back. may be able to get something out of here, a dish or something. Maybe the top of a couple of roofs for miniature birdhouse ornaments. All right, time to evaluate these 3 larger blanks, see what I've got. What am I going to use for that? Well, templates for sizing, ruler for measuring, screwdriver to knock off some of the bark, birdcage awl to see how deep some of these fissures might go that the bugs have left. So let me knock off some of this superficial bark here. All day whacking out critters. So I think this could make a nice bowl blank. Looks like I've got that backside to consider. So I slap an 8" on there. I can almost get a 8" blank. I'd cut it 8. It probably wound up getting smaller than that. Draw around it. Give me a feel for what I might have. And then I've got some scrap to do some other stuff with. Maybe box blanks or something when it dries out. I think that's probably what I do with that one. Set that aside. And let's see what the next one looks like. The next one is got that similar gash down here, which I didn't evaluate closely, but it looks like it's heading in this direction. So if it was heading in the other direction, if it was heading in this direction, it'd be more of a concern. But it means I can probably get a nice gold bowl blank out of that size. Almost an 8". Yeah, I think that'll work on that one. And then you want to get your money-making largest things you can get out of the burl, and then save the rest scrap. See how you can process those for smaller projects. All right, now this one has got a bad split on it. I'll go 2 pieces up. This one has got that bad split that runs to about there, and it's got looks like a branch coming out of it here. I don't think that's going to affect the bowl except on that side. Let's see if I slap an 8" right there. Lose some on that side, lose some a little bit on that side. This side I don't seem to have any cracks, but I probably ought to use Richard Raffan's technique, cut off strips off of it to see how far these splits go. But I can tell that one, another one right here. So actually probably I'm just going to go ahead and mark this bowl here. And I think then I will cut it off here and evaluate the cracks before I get too far invested in a bowl blank there. Okay, here's that one. Okay. More critters. Alright, so let's get on the bandsaw and start chopping. Okay, I got one of the clean blanks. It's flat enough to rest steady, so I can follow that magic mark on that circle. So let's turn on the dust extractor and start cutting.
I'm using a 3/8 inch, 3/2 per inch woodturner's blade from Highland Woodworking. You can get similar blades from other sources. I can tell the blade's getting a little dull.
I'm looking at this. I've got this hole in the side. Not sure how bad that is. Doesn't look like it goes too deep, but it's certainly going to reduce the size of my bowl blank. Rather than just cut it round again, I'd evaluate that on the lathe. Side. Now let's look at the scrap that's left, get a feel for that. Got some very nice burl figure in it. These will make birdhouse roofs with a perch with a roof line that direction. So let me go ahead and cut that off here and square it up. Okay, to evaluate these pieces for birdhouse roofs, they tend to be about 2.5 inches. I've got to square this up. This is a scrap that fell off of that. I'll throw that one away. Put these away. Square this up so I can cut it. Better evaluate it. So let's do that. I'm going to cut it along that axis to about that point.
Cutting across a round is extremely hazardous because of the unsupported edge on a bandsaw, so I use a hand clamp to grab it securely so it won't spin on me as I square up the ends.
I've got a fairly large, thick blank that might be capable of generating a box if I can get rid of the waste here. Let's get that birdcage all again. I think all of this has got to come away. All that's going to be wasted. Evaluate the other part of the blank. It's a big chunk of wood. Unfortunately, sometimes the burls, big chunks are not real useful when you evaluate, because this one's got a hole here, hole here, hole here. That whole corner's got to come off. It's got a hole here. It doesn't go too deep. This pith here, it's pretty strong, looks like. Got a lot of bark that, with no strength to it, that goes fairly deep. So I think what I want to do is cut off this bark section. I've got this hole on this side that goes in that renders a lot of this useless, so I think I'll probably cut back I think I'll just kind of square it up a little bit and see what I've got. After looking at this every direction, having a hard time to see what to do with it, I think I may just donate this to a friend of mine that's planning on doing a resin, make some mud blanks out of. Okay, for this next blank, we're going to square up the ends and then evaluate that for any splits. I'm just going to run that across here. Top side is solid, no cracks. The bottom, I think I still may have a crack, but I know I've got to take off the bottom of the bowl down to this bark inclusion, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now instead of struggling with doing that on the lathe. I knew that blade was getting hard, and I was having to push too hard, and it finally snapped on me. Waste not, want not. This is that end I cut off on one end. It still has some figure in there, some burl. Not sure how good it is, but it's better than plain wood for some projects. So I'm looking for. I've got a gonk workshop coming up, so let me see if I can't get it some 2-inch, 2 1/4 inch squares out of this. The other side got a bad split, so I'm just going to cut right down the middle of that split and see where we go from there. So out of that end scrap that could have been thrown away, I've got a gonk blank, a couple of birdhouse ornament roofs, and maybe a hat for a gonk. Well, I was just out of 1/2 the scrap. I forgot I had this other one. This cherry looks nice. I see a crack coming, a partial crack down here that's coming along the grain, and I see it coming along here, which tells me it looks awfully lot like a ring shake. So I don't want to hazard the use of that, so I will get rid of that. So I got 2 blanks out of that. This will be a hat or a miniature birdhouse roof. This one, it looks pretty promising here, but unfortunately I found this bug hole that goes deep into the center. So it's not worth trying to waste time on it and find out it's not salvageable. Here's the longer end that I cut off of that burl. Let me see how I can process that up to smaller spindle projects. I've got a crack here, got a crack here, got a crack here, And other than that, it doesn't look too bad. That's on the fresh cut side. Let me see if I can get a hint on the other side. Okay, got a crack through here, crack through here. Let's see if that's a continuation. Nope, that's a new one. And this one looks to be a continuation of that one, so I think that's what I will work through first, and it goes through the pith. Let me just cut straight across. I don't see any cracks on the other side. This is a little bit wider, so I think I'll get a nice square blank out of that. I can make a couple of bowls out of, so let me do that. About that size, maybe. Which side's most stable? That one is. Okay. Well, I've got a little bit of a arc inclusion here. Let me explore that a little bit. Looks like it comes in there. I think I'm still good to cut off that square.
The fence to allow the blank to slip by the blade, and that allows me then to turn it 90 degrees and cut it square. I carefully evaluate the bark side, decide I can make a little small bowl, a blank out of it, so figuring out how the best way to support it against the fence.
Looks like you can make a nice little bowl blank as well. I need a 4-inch, but actually, since this is the flat side, I'm just going to use the 3-inch and cut around it. So what is a burl? How do they happen? Well, based on some limited research, I discovered that a burl, American English, or burr, British English, is a tree growth in which the grain has grown in a deformed manner. It's commonly found in the form of a rounded outgrowth on a tree trunk or a branch that is filled with small knots from dormant buds. Dr. Siri Robinson, a professor of wood anatomy at Oregon State University, recently did an article for American Woodturner that I got some information from. Dr. Robinson says that the exact cause of burls is unknown.
She writes that they appeared to be at least partially a defense mechanism by the tree to seal off wounds, like from fallen branches, or to sequester areas infected by fungi and insects. She explains that burls can occur in all trees, both hardwood and softwood, but some trees are more susceptible to burls than others. And there's also a genetic disposition which can be regionalized. That speaks to why in these very few, this little clump of cherry trees, why there were so many burls. That it happens to be one of these genetic dispositions of that particular stand in that area, or there were some common stresses that cause burls. I don't know why.
I was able to harvest a huge number of cherry burls from the trees at my church. You can see the burls in these trees. I made, I think, 3 trips loading up my little SUV with the burls.
In the position, this adjusted, where this fits that same curve and doesn't bind. Well, that was dramatic. I should have stopped it right then and gone ahead and popped it, and I could have taken that out. But anyway, that'll give me a nice little bowl with some beautiful...
Well, it gives you some idea how I deal with processing a burl. If you're interested in learning more about turning precious pieces of wood, including small pieces of burl, you might want to check out this video. I appreciate any comments or feedback you've got. And remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back, you hear?